harmless. She wouldn't even hurt a fly. Welcome one and all to my first annual Halloween series here on the channel. God, I'm so giddy right now, can you tell? So for this year's Halloween series, I decided to go a little bit more traditional and talk about a series of some of my favorite scary movies of all time. And needless to say, I had to start this series off hot. I had to start it off with the one film that I truly believe validated modern horror as we know it. Psycho. This was of course released in theaters in 1960, directed by the one and only Alfred Hitchcock, in what many including myself consider to be his defining work. Janet Leigh stars in this movie as Marion Crane, a secretary who is on the run after stealing $40,000 from her employer in Phoenix in order to escape with her boyfriend Sam, played by Gavin. And she is overcome by exhaustion during a heavy rainstorm. After traveling on back roads to avoid the police, she stops for the night at the ramshackle Bates Motel, and she meets a very polite yet highly strung proprietor, Norman Bates, played by Anthony Perkins. Norman is a young man with an interest in taxidermy, and he also has a difficult relationship with his mother, almost like he's on her leash. Guys, before I continue on with this review, I want to thank you all so much for stopping by. I hope you guys enjoy your stay. I am so stoked to be here discussing cinema and all the latest things entertainment with you guys, and I'm super stoked to bring this first annual Halloween series to life here on the channel. And if you guys want to keep up with all this exciting new content as it comes out, please consider hitting that subscribe button down below as hard as you possibly can if you're new here. That way you guys can know whenever any one of these new videos hits. Yoy, well, where do I begin with this one? Well, I guess I'll start here. Alfred Hitchcock directed this film, of course. It was based on the novel released the year before this film's theatrical release, I believe. And if I'm wrong, please don't hesitate to correct me down in the comments below. But getting back to the movie, this was shrouded in mystery back in the year 1960. The film had a 6-minute trailer, which was just pretty much a tour of the set guided by Alfred Hitchcock himself. And once this movie was released in theaters, there were a lot of really strict guidelines that Hitchcock had actually put out to the theaters upon release. He told the movie theaters basically, do not admit anyone who is late to the movie's showtime, they have to wait for the next one. And he also begged audiences not to share the movie's final twist with anybody who had not seen it. I honestly really love that. And by the way, if you guys have never seen Psycho before, I'm gonna get really in-depth about this thing, hopefully. I don't know how long this video is gonna be. But just to warn you guys, I will be discussing some spoilers along the way as well. So just in case you've never seen Psycho, you've been warned. Truly, there was no film like Psycho at the turn of this new decade. And 60 years later, it still retains a lot of that suspense and truly unsettling features. Truth be told, I did not watch this movie until I was in high school. I loved the film on first watch, and especially on rewatch after rewatch. This guy still sitting here is telling you guys he still loves it so much. I honestly think Psycho is a masterpiece. All of these horror films and all of these slasher films that came after it, I think owe a debt to this film. Because Alfred Hitchcock was going for broke with this project. The studio really did not have a lot of faith in this project, and similar to George Lucas in Star Wars, Alfred Hitchcock ended up making millions off of this movie. He took a true gamble with the ideas that he put forth with this movie, and needless to say, it paid off. This is one of my 2 favorite movies shot in black and white, right next to 12 Angry Men. The thing is, even though both of these movies are shot in black and white, they both feel timeless. Right down to these shots and this direction and all this magnificent acting, it all still feels like stuff that could happen today. Speaking of casting, Anthony Perkins as Norman Bates I still think was a genius move, because not only is he damn good in this movie, but Alfred Hitchcock actually wanted to pick somebody for this role that doesn't look like your typical serial killer. In any other movie in 1960, Anthony Perkins would probably be typecast as the hero. And Hitchcock's intention was definitely to throw his audience off the scent with this character. Not just by simply casting him, but also a lot of the writing and the dialogue for him really helps build some sympathy for him, actually. I mean, he's a nice guy, he's a workaholic, but he always seems to be on the leash of his mother, who is very controlling, very overbearing, and she just so happens to keep killing all the damn customers. Now, speaking of killing, let's talk about this shower scene, shall we? I mean, it's only one of the most famous scenes in cinema history. No big deal, right? On this most recent rewatch I had of Psycho, this shower scene is just so damn well made, just like the rest of the film. Fun fact, it actually took Hitchcock and the actors over a week to shoot it, and the final product actually features 50 different cuts, a lot of them being extreme close-ups. And even on this rewatch, it was still very jarring. I still felt very queasy watching it, but that's a good thing. Now, the queasiness isn't necessarily because of the violence. We actually don't exactly see the blade puncture Marion Crane at all. So the blood and the gore isn't exactly what scared me about this movie, but the fact that all the violence was implied there. The amazing selling of that scene by Janet Leigh, who is magnificent in the movie as well, just overall, just awesome, iconic performance. But you also have that absolutely chilling score by Bernard Herrmann, just so extremely tense. And also, this is a scene that was unheard of back in the day. Audiences must have been sitting in the theater in 1960 going, what the f***? We're only halfway through this movie and the main character is dead? Holy sh**. What happens now? Guys, can you tell I love this movie? Everything about Psycho is so damn incredible. The suggestive horror, the acting, the directing, the filmmaking, and also the secluded locations. I love this location. Bates Motel is just so iconic. That sign, that house looming on the hill, all of that has just become so iconic, guys. When I think of a secluded location, the Bates' residence is usually what I think of. And this story just builds and builds and builds. New main characters are introduced, and all of these pieces start coming together. And especially, you kind of start to notice the pieces are coming together when Norman is actually cleaning up the mess his mother left in Cabin 1. That whole scene where Anthony Perkins is mopping up the blood is just so mesmerizing to look at. Not one moment of dialogue in that whole sequence, you'll notice. And all that build up to the big plot twist, by this point you probably know what it is. Norman has actually been operating under a split personality. His mother has actually been dead for years leading up to this. And that whole climax where this twist is revealed is extremely ominous. Vera Miles' character, also really great in the movie. Her just walking through the Bates house is just so creepy and so unsettling. And of course, when she walks down the stairs into that cold storage cellar and she turns Mother's skeleton around and it's revealed on screen. Chills! Up and down my spine, I say. And that, of course, is followed by Norman entering the room in his mother's clothing and that smile on his face as he enters the room. Just so unsettling in the right way. And I feel like Alfred Hitchcock was hinting at this twist even earlier in the film. There was one shot that on this rewatch I just kind of noticed, and I don't think this shot gets nearly enough attention these days. It's shortly after Norman actually meets Marion on the estate, and he actually brings down that dinner tray with the sandwiches and the milk. You'll notice Marion is standing right by the office door, but Norman is standing right by the window, and you also see his reflection talking to Marion. Two personalities at work. I mean, it's genius filmmaking, guys. How Hitchcock handled this twist is so masterful, but it actually does lead me to one small issue that I have with the movie these days. I honestly don't think I'm gonna downgrade the movie for it though, because I feel like Hitchcock felt like back then he had to include this moment in the movie because of some concerns that his audience wouldn't exactly get that big plot twist. They wouldn't understand it. Y'all know what I'm talking about. It's that big ol' exposition dump by the doctor after he locks Norman in solitary confinement. And it's literally like the doctor is looking right at the audience and he's explaining the entire plot twist to them beat for beat. It's almost like, say you have a magician, right? And he performs this really mind-blowing trick on stage. And then right before the show is over, he reveals to the audience exactly how that mind-blowing trick worked. How ridiculous does that sound? They would never do that these days. But again, I do understand why Hitchcock felt the need to include this whole monologue in the movie. Because this was a very ballsy twist, and he may have been extremely worried that the twist would just, boop, fly over the audience's heads back into the projector's booth. So in a sense, I kind of understand why he did it, and he made the movie a lot more accessible that way in 1960. So therefore, like I said, I'm not going to downgrade the movie for that, but today, I feel like Hitchcock should have trusted his audience a little bit more. Regardless, though, Psycho still remains an instant classic. I feel like it set the bar for how modern horror films were going to be going forward. And this is Alfred Hitchcock's greatest masterpiece, in my opinion. I'm gonna give Psycho an A+. So the reason why I went with this movie first, you can kind of tell. without Psycho, I don't think any of these modern horror films like Halloween or The Exorcist or Hereditary even, I don't think any of those movies would have existed without what Hitchcock did here. And this is also not the only movie I'm going to be reviewing on this playlist. Also, just to give you a hint for what's to come on this playlist, this is not the only movie I'm reviewing with Psycho in the title. I don't want to reveal it yet. Stay tuned for tomorrow. And if you're enjoying my content, if you guys want to keep updated with the movies I'm going to be choosing for this series, please once again consider hitting that subscribe button down below as hard as you possibly can so you guys can be the first to know whenever any of my new content hits the channel. And please be sure also, if you enjoyed the video, to leave a big fat thumbs up on it on your way out. I'd really appreciate that too. Guys, you're the best. Thank you all so much for watching. Thank you all for supporting the channel so far. Look forward to more fun content coming to the channel very, very soon. And with all that being said, back talk, commence!